There were many concerns that we heard from clergy and stewardship lay leaders at the beginning of this crisis. And one of them was about the potential decrease in giving and how their congregation would continue to pay for the critical ministries. That's why we quickly established a plan for parishioners to give to their congregation through the Diocesan online giving portal. By using a process that we already had in place, churches could continue to receive financial gifts without interruption. And this gave the churches chances to do the work to put more permanent solution into place. Today, we're here to help you develop a plan to establish digital giving for your church, if you haven't already done so, to help encourage recurring giving among your parishioners, and enhance the messaging you use to optimize digital giving. We're going to see some information from the past couple of years, as well as data that's based on giving from the first 3 months of the COVID crisis. We're going to talk about why digital giving needs to be part of your present and your future. We'll look through specific offerings from some digital giving platforms and how to compare them so that you can determine which one is best for you. And once you have the digital giving platform in place, how you can best ensure success for your congregation. We'll also have some resources for you once we get everything put to the website. Along with these slides, we'll post a list of the digital platforms that we'll be looking at today, along with the links to their websites, a comparison chart for your team to use as you collect information during your research and the demos, a list of thank you opportunities you have and ways to create things that you'll need to create as part of your gratitude plan, and then also a digital and recurring giving plan. So the studies from online giving providers and other groups suggest that donors who give electronically, especially when they make recurring gifts, give more than those who give checks and cash. Research from PushPay tells us that those who give electronically gave 33% more than traditional church givers. And a study from Network for Good said across all nonprofit givers, recurring donors give up to 42% more. Of course, we know it's not just about money. As folks who are involved in stewardship, we know that people who are engaged in the life of our congregations are often those who are working to engage more deeply in their own faith journey. The Vanco Churchgoer Giving Study found that electronic givers contributed a larger percentage of their salary to the church compared to traditional givers, and that they're more engaged in church activities than traditional givers. This confirms that people give more and are more often engaged because they've been discipled, they've been stewarded. We know that congregations that already had high levels of electronic giving were better equipped to address the move to digital giving when it was no longer possible for us to worship together inside our church buildings. But what about the rest of us? Why is this important, especially now? If you saw any of our webinars this spring, you heard me talk about the giving curve that follows after a crisis. While there is usually a natural bump in giving at the onset of a crisis, most organizations will begin to experience a slump before too long. As churches, we've been accustomed to a slump, a naturally occurring slump in the summer, when parishioners begin to drift away on their own and their attendance shifts. And along with their attendance, their giving drifts too. And that's what this giving curve shows us will happen, but it will be much more drastic. For churches, this slump, along with the giving curve, is like the disruption that churches are accustomed to in the summer, when parishioners can't give financially during the offertory when they attend worship in person. This week, new information was provided from the Global Trends in Giving survey. And while the full data won't be released until September, the key findings provide some idea of who donated in the immediate response to the COVID-19 pandemic. I think it's worth noting that 68% of the respondents to the survey were female, 31% were male. And along with that, 41% were baby boomers, 24% were millennials, 22% were Gen Xers, and 11% were matures, and 2% were Gen Zs. And overall, this actually very well does mirror the nonprofit donor pool. The top 3 preferred methods of giving in this survey were online giving, bank and wire transfers, and direct mail post. I know that these screenshots are somewhat difficult for you, but I will tell you the colors they use are pretty good, and that's mostly what you'll need to see. Here, I think these methods not only show us what was available at the beginning of the crisis, online, bank transfer, and direct mail, but these are also likely to be what is available to us throughout the crisis. .6% of donors in the survey were currently enrolled in recurring giving programs. Recurring donors are more likely to give to an organization in a crisis than an organization they have no relationship with. Also, we know the lifetime value of a recurring donor is almost always higher than that of a one-time gift. Almost 50% had donated to a crowdfunding campaign in the last 12 months, but almost as many had not. And they asked people if they had created an online peer-to-peer campaign within the last 12 months, and only a little over 12% had. 20.9% gave to a nonprofit last fall for Giving Tuesday. So I do get the impression that this survey was taken before Giving Tuesday now in May. I put this information about crowdfunding and peer-to-peer campaigns here because some of the platforms we will look at have this capability. If you think it's going to be valuable for your congregation, then you should consider this when you make your comparisons. Have you donated money to a nonprofit you volunteered for? 66.7% had volunteered for a nonprofit in the last year, and 74% had donated to that nonprofit. Remember what we said about engagement? Even in a crisis, or maybe especially in a crisis, folks are engaged with your congregation. They are with you. And which of the following are most likely to inspire you to give repeatedly to an organization? Folks were allowed to choose more than one answer here, but for folks who gave digitally, they mostly wanted to receive regular communications by email. Up to 65% say they want to hear about the impact of their donation this way. But as we talked about in our best practices conversations, you still need to engage folks on different platforms. There are folks who want to receive print communications, as you can see, and others who want to hear about you on social media, and some who want handwritten notes or a phone call. The way you communicate with your donors should be about them, not about you. Our churches have done a good job figuring out how to maintain their relationships and connections with parishioners and begin to move their worship to a different format. But many are still struggling to figure out how to provide a way for parishioners to continue their financial relationship with their congregation.